I'm Richard Pyatt, here with Roger Furwarn, president of AE Tech Design, for another episode of the Little Blinking Light podcast. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Great. Boy, this subject is one that is going to resonate with just about everybody. The security of our email and our email communications. Just a small subject.
Just a small subject. Everybody has become so reliant on email for in their organization. And as such, it needs to work. It needs to get to where it's supposed to go. It can't land in people's spam folders. And there's some changes happening on the horizon that's going to impact that. And how organizations deal with that is going to be important. And not all of them are equipped to necessarily handle that, even if somebody else like Microsoft or Google is handling their email servers, where their employees are going to access email. They're not handling the compliance pieces that are important to some of this.
All right. And this all weaves in with the idea that our email may not be considered legitimate, or someone might mimic us that isn't legitimate.
You know, and that's been the real struggle with email for a long time now, and is becoming more and more pressing. There are so many attempts from hackers and spammers to get in and flood email boxes with non-legitimate email, that organizations, the big organizations out there, the Microsofts, the Googles, those types of places are starting to say, we're going to draw a line in the sand, and there's going to be some compliance you need to achieve with your email. And if you don't achieve that, your stuff's isn't going to necessarily be delivered, or if it is, it's going to go in the spam folder because we don't know that it's reliable email that they should be receiving. Mm-hmm. And they're setting deadlines to that. And organizations, we talked with many organizations that aren't aware of that, and they haven't started to take the steps in order to become compliant with that.
And that is all rooted in the idea that we're trying to make a person's email more recognizable as legitimate or not, as it were, right? So these are steps in that direction.
Yeah, you know, there's now multiple steps to take. There's everything. There's even pieces now that will validate logos in emails and actually check those to a source that is encrypted and signed to prove that certain pieces are legitimate. So you can actually even protect your brand from some of those types of attacks. The amazing thing is there are technologies to make this better, but unfortunately the whole internet has to shift in order to make them work. And because of that, we're working with our clients right now to get those things in place so that they're compliant today and into the future. They're protecting their domains. They're protecting how their emails are delivered. We're even also making sure that organizations are doing things like backing up their emails. So often we talk with organizations and they're like, oh yeah, you know, Google has that. They're backing up our stuff. And we're like, you really need to read the terms of service associated with that. They have some, you know, things in place that kind of protect your data, but not as well as you would think. And they're not responsible if all of a sudden one day it's just gone. You need to have backup of your email in place in order to make sure that that's happening. And all too often places are relying on others because they no longer have those servers in-house. They're like, oh yeah, no, well, you know, Microsoft's handling that for us. And we're like, no, delete an email, wait until it falls out of the trash. You contact Microsoft and say, hey, I need that email back. And they're going to go, oh, sorry,
it's gone.
You know, it's no longer there. That's it. And we don't want that for our clients. We want to make sure that they can access any of their past historical stuff and they have an idea of how long it's retained for. The other thing is there's compliance around, for certain organizations, they have to keep records of their emails for so many years. They have to have retention policies, and they have to have strategies that take that and offload from their normal email storage into something else, because it continues to grow and grow and grow. They're maintaining maybe 7 years worth of compliance of these records. Boy, what do you do with that data?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we also help our clients with, is figuring out strategies around that. So there's the security piece, there's a backup piece, there's a retention piece. All of this kind of comes together so that we want to make sure that email is something that really is a success in the organization, not something that they're struggling with every day.
And when you say backup, we're talking about cloud or an external drive or something.
We're talking a cloud backup solution that connects into these, because again, the two major email services today for organizations is Microsoft and Google. Microsoft 365, Google Workspace are the big pieces now that are being used for most organizations. And those then need to be backed up so that there's snapshots in time, so that if somebody deletes an entire email box, and we've seen this, employees leave, they're angry, they take drastic steps, they start just, I'm going to remove everything. They delete it all. People are like, oh, we need that back. Did you have backup in place? Those are the types of things that we want to make sure are there.
Okay. And when you talk about the authentication of even a logo in an email, this is really interesting because this is how sometimes we are impersonated, right? Someone
Absolutely.
can take your email
Yeah.
and create a new one that looks very similar but isn't you. And we don't question the look of that or even the technology, so to speak, of that logo.
Yeah, and we will make sure that those kinds of policies are in place on your email. But we'll even take it additional. There's also training modules that are so important for staff to take from a cybersecurity standpoint with email, and learning how to spot, phished emails, learning to look not just at what is the display name, of an email, but making sure that it actually matches the email and the domain, and, taking those additional steps, having pieces of software in there that helps spot and recognize spam, making sure all of this is a cohesive piece and it's not just kind of patched together with big gaping holes along the way, is something that we find really, really important in what we do.
And this is a balance, isn't it? Because I can call to mind at least one occasion upon which my own email doesn't get through to a client because there's something about it that its firewall doesn't like. And so it just doesn't get there. And this is also the delicate balance here.
It is a very delicate balance to making sure that, things are very usable for end users. I have watched things be locked down so hard in organizations that the number of hoops that people have to jump through, they're like, well, I don't even want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so employees find other ways around it. So if the technology is not user friendly, if it's doesn't make sense, they're doing things that are even more risky now to try not to use it. So we want to make sure that end users understand the importance, that they have software that's easy for them to use, they're easy for them to recognize. And I can tell you, some of those phishing attacks out there are far more sophisticated than they've ever been. It used to be that there was always horrendous spelling and grammar errors. Well, with the advent of AI, even foreign countries who may be sponsoring some of those types of attacks of clients here in the United States, those types of attacks are now they look legitimate. They read authentic because they're using AI, even if English isn't their native first language. They're using AI to kind of craft and help those emails. So sophistication has gone up tremendously. So, making sure that employees understand that has become ever so more important.
If you have a contact form on your site, does that fold into the whole email system?
We do. We have a contact form right on our website. It allows people to get a free consultation with us. And that goes right into our system, where we make sure that our emails get to us, that we then have our clients' information in there, and that we can then utilize that easy within our organization. Again, we want to make sure we're doing things efficiently as well. Yeah. And so we're also able to work with our clients and getting that set up and set up successfully in their organization, so that when things are coming into their inboxes or going to their clients' inboxes, that they're not getting flagged, that they're not being not delivered, because that's a tremendous frustration when that happens.
Yeah. Let me ask you this before we go. Before they even reach out to you, is there something someone listening can do now, one or two things that help their email be more secure immediately?
Yeah. One of the things is there are some free utilities out there, and we'll put them in below in the show notes, that people can reach out to and put your domain in and see how it does from a compliance standpoint. And you can go in there and see where you are meeting some of these pieces, but where you're not. And, some of them aren't too bad to try to do yourself. And some of them start to get a little bit more involved. Some of them if you don't have kind of the back end systems to handle it, you're not going to have a very good insight into what's happening with your email.
Yeah. All right. Well, these are some of the things we talk about on the Little Blinking Light podcast. Little things, but boy, they're really not little. They're big concerns.
They're big. They're impactful for organizations for sure.
So also in the show notes is the link to Roger and his team at AE Tech Design to help you get these questions answered and feel a little bit more better and sleep better at night knowing that you have some of these protocols in place. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you so much.
Richard Pyatt here with the Little Blinking Light podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.